Welcome back, crew. We are wrapping up our April game of the month, Chaosium's Call of Cthulhu system, with our review of the tabletop RPG, going through our likes, dislikes, and things we're excited for in the future. But this one, before we get into it, it's been one I've wanted to play for a long time. I've always heard that the big three, the kind of the tent poles of the tabletop RPG space, are of course D&D, Paizo and Pathfinder, and then Call of Cthulhu. And for years I hadn't played it, and we finally found a good chance to pull it in with our 12th game of the month. And get a chance to bring it to my table with my crew, and it's a little bit different than usual. Usually, I'm the one behind the game master screen, but this time we brought in a professional game master keeper. In this case, I should say, and reached out to Jacob from Start Playing. Check out the description; his link will be in there. If you haven't seen our actual play, go check it out. He did a phenomenal job. Me and my crew had a blast, and definitely if you want to bring some Call of Cthulhu adventures to your crew, I'd hook up with Jacob. He does a whole bunch of other games. I can't mention it off the top of my head, but he does a fantastic Call of Cthulhu, and I can definitely recommend him for that. But yeah, of course, we're going to dive into it. And as always, we're going to go through our roses, buds, and thorns for the system. For those who may not be familiar with it, I stole it from Not Another D&D podcast. I don't know if they stole it from somebody else, but roses are what you like about something. Thorns are things that just may not have clicked with you, or you didn't like about it. And buds are something with the system or with the review you're excited to see in the future play out again. So we're going to go through that, as always, starting with our roses for the system. And probably my biggest rose for this, especially because I was new to this system as well. I hadn't played it before, and both my players, or my other two players at the table, I should say, were new to it too. But it's very easy to pick up. You pretty much roll your percentile dice for everything. It was kind of another small rose there too. I got to put my D10s to work a little bit more than I usually do, unless so that was kind of fun on that side to break them, brush off the dust from them. But yeah, that was cool, and that's it was very easy to pick up. The rolls were simple. You had your basically your attribute on that side. The keeper that sets if it's hard or extremely hard, and you know what you have to roll beneath or equal to, and it just kind of keep going and flowing. And we had a blast when we would keep. And that's another thing too. I'll kind of say it's easy to pick up, but it's also fast paced. And I think with horror and kind of especially Eldritch horror and any horror game in general, I think keeping the pacing right is so important, which is why I'll pick on Pathfinder, for instance. I feel like you can definitely run a horror adventure in Pathfinder, but sometimes with combat and things like that, when it slows it down too much, I think it lets it get too mechanical and lets horror kind of seep out of it. But with a system like Call of Cthulhu or Aliens, for when we played before too, where we can kind of keep that momentum going, keep that fast pace even in combat, it helps add to that horror element. Adds to that overall ambiance the keeper of the game master can build. So definitely a big rose for that. I think it really fits the space of Call of Cthulhu well. And kind of along those lines too, and feeding into that, it does a good job of evoking horror. The mix of the sanity system, how fragile your PCs are, and just kind of the creepy world that Call of Cthulhu encourages the keeper to build. I think it does a really good job of just evoking that sense of horror, keeping players at the edge of their seats because they know that death not only can come, it's fairly easy in this system. And that's actually another rose too. There's so many systems where like, killing your PCs can be like you can actually have to try sometimes to kill your PCs. With this system, I feel like you almost have to try not to kill the PCs with how delicate they are and how overmatched they are against the forces they're going up against. They're usually with I'll pick on D&D this time. Usually you're kind of the kid with the big stick going up against crazy monsters, but you're strong, you're a titan yourself. This you're just a kid with a small stick, going up against those same titans, but you just got your stick. You don't have any crazy magic or any crazy things to help pull it out. You've got your wits and determined drive to go forward. So I really like that. I won't give any spoilers. I would say there was definitely some lethality involved though with our one shot. And it was just cool. It told a really good story at the table, and I think having that players be mortals, just kind of mere mortals in that sense, added to the story and added to that ambiance. Uh, Another big thing, I didn't get to get this in the video, and the problem is I didn't get to the combat slash sanity video I wanted to do. My work life, my real work life, and has been a little bit crazy this month. I may still come back to it though, especially the sanity piece. I liked it, and I want to definitely want to put something out there for it. But one of the big things I liked with this we didn't get to touch is how the skill system works in regards to succeeding and skills. It's really if you the more you use a skill and the more you use the skill and succeed at it, the more you can improve it after the scenario ends. And I think that's a really cool way to encourage growth and reward players for having a specialty or even using a skill and succeeding that may not be in their wheelhouse. They can kind of see that growth incrementally. And I think that's a fun way to do it. I wish more systems had kind of processes in place to reward you for utilizing your skills and get those kind of incremental bumps. So that's another really big rose there, and I wish we had a talked about in the video, but it may come in the future too. Uh, Last big thing, and I said I want to do a video on this still. The sanity system is really cool. We had some fun with that in the actual play, and I think that's just a fun one, especially if you got a good role play party. And I think me and my crew did a good job with it, but especially some like the hardcore role players, just those things can just really add just elements of craziness to the story and just really get a chance for you to flex your RP muscles. It's definitely one that I enjoyed and I want to see more of too. This is gonna be kind of a rose and a bud for that because I think the sanity just has such a unique element to it and it's fun areas you can kind of just role play out your PCs. So that was really cool in my eyes. But those are kind of my core roses. I really enjoyed the system. We'll kind of go into buds next. With this one bud, and this is probably an easy one. Um, I want to give my own try at running the Call of Cthulhu system. It won't probably be the next few months. I've got a backlog of one shots I need I need to run with other systems right now. Shout outs to probably Scum and Villainy, either Morkborg or Cyborg or Starfinder coming up sometime in May. Not sure which of those three. It probably will be Morkborg or Starfinder or Scum and Villainy. Both those guys are a little bit easier to run the Starfinder on a quick basis, but Starfinder's coming sometime down the line too. But this was just it was fun as a player, and I definitely want to test out kind of how it feels on the other side of the screen too. And I may even do a little updated review once I get that in too. Uh, the other big bud too, and we already touched on this a little bit, is I want to see how skill progression works in a campaign. 'Cause I feel like that's just a really cool system. I think I know more systems are adopting it, but I definitely think it's one of the unique ones in the space as well. I just really love the thought process behind improving as you use your skills and getting to kind of see your PC grow with the things that they are actually making use of. Kind of fits the narrative and the mechanics, and I love when narrative and mechanics come together. So big shout out for that. So thorns on the side. I didn't really have many thorns. And then the first thorn I'm going to say it's like a half thorn for me, half thorn for Chaosium. I would have called the core rulebook or the keeper's rulebook the core rulebook. Luckily, when they had Chaosium had a sale around I think Black Friday, and I bought both of them: the investigator's rulebook and the core rulebook, or the keeper's rulebook. But I really thought before that the investigator's book would be like the player's handbook slash core rulebook, and the keeper's book would be more like the GM's guide. And I think a couple of my players even mentioned the same too there. So this half on me. I should have read a little bit better, did a little bit of research. But luckily, I bought both of them at the same time, so it really didn't really impact or slow us down at all. That was a small thorn there, and I'll take part of that myself too. Outside of that, I really didn't have many thorns with the system. It flowed well. The biggest thing I will say is a little bit of a source of confusion, because I had both my players ask this too, and they had it in there. They had it in the system. But I think they could bold it or something. Is when you're picking your skills or when you're putting those attribute points into your skills. I wish they would just make it clear that you add it on top. I think it's in there. I think it's accessible, but I know both my players had that question. I did have to flip around a little bit myself too, just to make sure I was doing that right. So just a small thorn there, just to really make it super clear for people, especially the first time going through. But overall, two very small thorns. Love this system. Love the fast pace of it. Love the horror. And I've said it before, but I just love the fragility of your PCs on that one. I've really been getting into OSRs a little bit lately with Morkborg. Karen is one of my favorites. Into the Odd too, and it's just I've been liking having kind of the PCs that aren't demigods. They're just small people trying to make their way in the world, and I think that's cool. I want more games to do that. I want to play more games that do that. So really cool on that side. But overall, check it out. Go watch that actual play if you haven't. Go check out Jacob's start playing page. He did an amazing job. Hopefully, we'll get to bring him back sometime as well. And then definitely join us for May. We are doing a new game of the month. We're getting back into our superhero flow. It's been a while since I played a superhero game. And I've really been in a comic booky mood. So we're bringing Champions Hero System into the mix. We'll have our first impressions out next week, probably. I got to do a little bit of flipping through. And just as a spoiler, I'm going to be running this one, and we are putting this in the Marvel universe. We are doing X-Men. Star Wars and X-Men are probably my two favorite franchises, and I'm looking forward to kind of doing some of their themes with this next adventure. So check that out. But as always, thanks for hanging out with our Call of Cthulhu review. This is one of my favorites we got to bring to the table. Definitely throw some cool comments or some of your roses, thorns, and buds about the Call of Cthulhu system below. I'd love to hear what the community thinks of this one. And then definitely like, subscribe. Each month we pick a different game of the month to go through, reviewing it, doing our actual play of the game, going over core mechanics, and then building a PC as well. So we're gonna be doing all that for Champions. Definitely, been looking. I've expanded my library quite a bit, so there's a lot more games to come down the line too. But thanks for hanging out with us, and until next time.